Hello, everyone. It is Monday, the 15th of January, 2024, and I'm going to be talking about the claustrum and Christ oil and accessing higher levels of consciousness and all that jazz. And I would love to get a little bit into the news, current events, but it's so frustratingly redundant regarding just so much misinformation that's being spread, even by people that are rich and famous podcasters or reporters, independent journalists, mainstream media. Obviously, this is a given, but there's just so much misinformation out there that it's just mind blowing that it's got to this point, right? So, even with what's going on with Israel and Palestine, there's so much misinformation and disinformation being projected on us, and like so much like words that are used like to classify children in Palestine getting murdered, like a 3-year-old, calling her young lady, and then calling 4 adult IDF soldiers girls, Israelis. And so there's just like this, the messaging is just so incorrect. And if you look at my videos on Rumble, Don189, there's so many videos that you're not going to see on YouTube. Obviously, I've gotten a lot of videos deleted. I'm on account number 3 or 4 on YouTube with multiple strikes on this one. And so there's a lot of times too that I don't even bother attempting to go on YouTube with the heavier stuff. I just stick with Rumble. And so there's literally hundreds of videos on Rumble that you're not getting on YouTube. And I encourage people. And so a really interesting thing happened yesterday. Mark Sargent, who is like one of the originals for the YouTube flat Earth movement, to get the information out there and get great videos out there. I've mentioned and shared Eric Dubé's stuff. I think I've definitely shared Mark Sargent's stuff as well. Rob Skiba, but unfortunately he's passed away. Rest in peace. Great information. And even with all of these people, they bring a wealth. Dave Weiss, obviously, and anyway, I can go on a list. Oh my goodness, Nathan Oakley. And if you want to look at authors, William Carpenter, Andrew Henry, Alex Gleason, the list goes on and on. And I've talked about gematria and symbology, and even within different occult books and religious texts, and how there is you don't find God outside of yourself, and that's even in chapters of the books of so many different books, right? You don't find God or Allah or whoever you want to call him, the creator in this creating reality, unless you go inwards, right? So anyone that's trying to be and by doing that, it's doing certain things within your own life in order to access the higher levels of consciousness. And I'm going to share those videos. But in Canada, like he was saying, like, Mark Sargent was saying, like, how did I only fall upon your channel now? And he was like he's looking at like older videos. And I verified the account, by the way. A lot of people, like, I know this, obviously. Like, I'm a top secret government analyst, international security analyst, and with like over 20 plus years experience. 15 years as an infantry officer, including being in JTF2, and I was asked to apply. You don't just get in, you have to go through like a really rigorous interview and selection process. But to be asked is incredibly rare to begin with, right? And so I checked his stuff and verified that it was indeed him. And I hope that we can do some kind of an interview, because there's a lot of men that are representing the flat Earth movement, but there's not a lot of women. And even with the electromagnetism aspect to this as well, with the toroidal fields and the hyperboloids and being projected on a flat plane of inertia, all that stuff, it's still people like Ken Wheeler that are at the forefront of that information, and there's no women. And so it'd be interesting. I've tried to even reach out to him multiple times to discuss moon towers and the electricity, dielectricity, magnetism, and just where like we differ just slightly on certain things, just to get his opinions on things, because he's a literal expert and he's written a lot of books, and he's on YouTube as Theoria Apophasis. But you can also search Ken Wheeler, easier to spell for people, and it'll bring up his name. And again, a lot of these people don't bring in the astrotheosophy aspect to it. And Santos Bonacci actually would be the closest to bringing that connection and the mind-body connection as well. And he has books out as well. And so I've shared his stuff for years as well. And I've talked to him. And I've talked to Eric Dubé. But like, who knows if it was him or not? It's definitely his page, his social media on Twitter. But I've messaged him back and forth, and on Instagram too. And we've talked about weather modification and geoengineering and all that stuff as well. and Eric Dubé. So again, it could be just they talk to everyone, or it could be that they like my work. I think it was, so I'm looking for which account that I wanted to show first. Okay, it's this one. I'll start with this one.
One part of it remains shrouded in mystery. Neuroscientists have been studying the brain.
Oh, yes. And I am a scientist. I have multiple degrees. One even being from RMC, and I won top Army cadet regular force in my 4th year. I was a squadron commander, cadet squadron commander in the only squadron at RMC that didn't have a captain, a real officer in the squadron. And so I was literally, even as an officer cadet, acting as a fucking captain. And different military positions, like I said, went to West Point on exchange, one of 2 people selected. And then also even at Carleton University in my 4th year for a cognitive science degree, which there's neuroscience involved and cognitive sciences involved, obviously all of that stuff. And it's on hold now in my 4th year because Carleton University is teaching the same woke agenda as, unfortunately, people at Johns Hopkins University and Harvard now too, with this woke ideology, and really, really, really critical race theory misinformation, you wouldn't friggin' believe, and saying that friggin' men can be women and women can be men, and that the earth is a globe, and that all of this shit. And I'm just none of that's real. And evolution, the way they teach it as well, and COVID stuff too. I wasn't even able to enter the campus, and I was giving their COVID teams on the campus all the same information, medical, scientific, government data that I was giving to all levels of government, and even these clowns didn't do anything with it. And so, yeah.
For decades, part of it remains shrouded in mystery. The claustrum. The claustrum is highly connected to other parts of the brain, so much so that Nobel laureate and DNA pioneer Dr. Francis Crick believed the claustrum may be the seat of human consciousness.
In the brain, in the cranium, there is the cerebrum. And in the cerebrum, and in particular the claustrum is sitting right there in the middle of the head, virtually. From the claustrum, there is a secretion, brain fluid. And this fluid is an oil. And in ancient times, this fluid, in Greek, it's called Christos. It's called the Christ. It's this beautiful fluid which comes from the cerebrum and pours down the spinal cord.
In all of us, we have 150 milliliters of cerebrospinal fluid inside of our brain, covering the outside of our brain, within the central canal of our spinal cord and around our spinal cord. We're all making this fluid, and it's bathing our entire brain. It's bathing all the insides of our brain, the outsides of our brain. The central canal, the spinal cord actually has a central canal that is bathed completely with CSF all the way down the spinal cord. And the CSF goes, and it actually goes all the way outside the spinal cord, all the way down to the sacrum.
The word secret comes from secretion, because this secretion is a secret. And the sacrum is the sacred part of the secret. As the secretion pours down the spinal cord and reaches the sacrum, this is the marvelous way in which our body has been designed. And the spinal cord is basically just an extension of the brain. It also does thinking.
The fluid is known to transmit light. It can transmit vibration. It can transmit flow, so flow from the fluid, and it can even translate molecules.
What happens with this fluid is that every month when the moon is in the sign where your sun was when you were born, every month there is a germ or a seed planted in the solar plexus, which is just above the sacral plexus. And that germ is the oil, the Christ, which is born.
Okay, so, and hear me out on that as well, because it's in the, he said in the sacral complex, the sacral area. And so that being the second chakra, the sacral area, it's just underneath the belly button, in my humble opinion. And this is there's it's more important than has been discussed in more recent times, to believe that umbilical cord connection, it also matters, right? I think that has something to do with the reason why every month when the moon is in our sun sign, the title of this video is incorrect. It's when every month when the moon is full, that's not it at all. It's when the moon enters your sun sign, that your individual umbilical cord sacral area, there's a seat or whatever it is that's manifested and or created, that's built, right? Even when women, we shed once a month, right? So it wouldn't be unreasonable to think that there's a seed that's created in this area and then goes up the spine, which is also an anagram for penis, and heart is also an anagram for earth. And anyways, and even during childbirth, when the baby is delivered, the umbilical cord should remain And there's a lot of people that teach this because there's still blood and plasma and like really, really important nutrients and micronutrients within the umbilical cord. That's why it's like full, right? And like pink or whatever you want to call it, the color. And then when you cut it off, like that blood and all that other stuff, it doesn't make it to the baby like it's supposed to, right? So you're supposed to leave it on for as long as possible and do not just cut it right away like a lot of freaking doctors do nowadays, who are completely ignorant on they're not completely ignorant on birth, on birthing, obviously, and delivering babies, but there's like a lot of incorrect things that are being done, and it should be like a few days, and then it will fall off naturally. And so I just want to like add that part in.
Born in Bethlehem, because the solar plexus is otherwise known as Bethlehem, where the Christ is born. And that oil needs to return whence it came, in the midbrain. You see, as the oil ascends the spinal cord, the vibration of the oil of the Christ increases. And you see, first of all, the oil is differentiated in the pineal gland and the pituitary gland before it is sent down the spinal cord. And the pineal gland is the electric portion, and the pituitary gland is the magnetic portion. So the oil is differentiated, and it is brought down the spinal cord via the Pingala and the Ida nerves. These are what is otherwise known as the Kundalini and the Kundabhatha. So it arrives at the sacral plexus and awaits for the germinating of the seed once a month, 12 times a year. And if we are able to transmute that seed and cause it to rise, as it rises in the spinal cord, it eventually reaches the medulla oblongata and the pons and the midbrain, and it crosses the vagus nerve, otherwise known as the pneumogastric nerve. It's a nerve which descends from the brain area, from the pineal and pituitary glands, respectively, and it feeds the lungs and the stomach. It's a network of nerves. And this network of nerves is called the tree of life. When the oil arrives at the very, very top, there awaiting is the optic thalamus, an egg-shaped organ in the middle of the head. When it crosses this pneumogastric nerve, this is called the crucifixion. The oil is not killed and destroyed, but it is magnified 1,000-fold. And the oil then touches the optic thalamus, and for 2.5 days remains in a condition that is called dead, that is considered to be dead, and then reaches the pineal gland after 2.5 days and illuminates the optic thalamus and the pineal gland. The optic thalamus was known as the light of the world by the Egyptians and the Greeks because they knew their physiology and anatomy. And they knew that this precious oil, which descended from the claustrum, from the cerebrum, and was differentiated in the pineal and pituitary glands, and descended the spinal cord, they knew that it would ascend eventually, and that the enlightened portion of mankind were able to cause this Christ oil to ascend so that it would ascend to the optic thalamus and cause it to be lightened. What in turn happens is that millions of brain cells that were dormant are now awakened. You see, the oil that descends from the cerebrum is known otherwise as the manna from heaven. You see, because heaven means heaved up. And the head, the cranium, the dome which sits on top of the torso, that was known as the heavens. And the heart area and the heart chakra was known as the Midgard, or the middle garden. And the generative area was known as Sodom and Gomorrah, the area of desire, animal desire, otherwise known as Egypt and hell and the world, etc. Whereas the Garden of Eden and the land flowing with milk and honey, that's upstairs. In fact, the pineal gland produces the honey, a secretion known as honey, which has DMT in it, and the pituitary body secretes the milk. This is the milk and honey. And the land flowing with milk and honey is upstairs. This is a sacred secret simply because the secretion, which comes from the sacral plexus, is one of the most important things that we need to know for physiological regeneration. The ancients used to live for thousands of years by protecting and keeping this secret and guarding it. The Egyptians built ascension chambers, pyramids, for this very purpose. And they taught the science of respecting, keeping and guarding and looking after this beautiful oil. And if you know the Gospels well, you will know all the scriptures that are referring to it. I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness. The light of the world is the optic thalamus. Keep your eye simple, for if your eye is dark, your whole body will be dark. You see, the cerebrum is hollowed out And the midbrain and the limbic system at the top of the spinal cord is the holy of holies. And the cerebellum, which sits at the back of the brain, this is otherwise known as the small brain. The cerebrum is associated with the top of the head, Aries, and the cerebellum is associated with Taurus, and the left brain, the male left brain. The right brain is the feminine, and it is connected to the cerebrum, Aries, the God brain.
So even with that, like I think it's like Aries is the masculine and Taurus is the feminine, but
So we have the God man,
Each their
the
own.
cerebrum,
same thing with the electricity magnet, like and magnetism with the sun and the moon. Like that's one thing that I also differ with a few different people as well with that. With I believe the sun to be magnetic, radiating energy, disintegrating energy, and the moon being electrical, generating, integrating energy.
and is the cerebellum. In the past, people have lived for thousands of years by preserving and conserving this oil and transmuting it so that it reaches the optic thalamus. You see, what happens when the oil reaches the optic thalamus is that new blood is generated in the body. Until such time as this process has occurred, we will have old toxic blood in our physical organisms. And in order to regenerate and produce new blood, the oil must be raised to the optic thalamus. And healing can occur. The millions
Healing can occur that way, absolutely. There's also like throughout time, people also did bloodletting, and that's why even original old barber shops with like the candy cane stripes, like that was all like these were like once like bloodletting areas.
of dormant brain cells are reactivated because we all have these dormant brain cells in our brains. And in the Bible, this is known as tithing. You see, this is why the Bible says you must return 1/10 to the Lord. Remember, the Lord, the Lord, refers to the gold. This is how we turn lead into gold. Spinal cord is like a thermometer. And as the mercury rises with warmth, the more so with enlightenment and consciousness and knowledge, we are able to raise the condition of this oil. And as it climbs the spine and ascends, it raises its vibration. In fact, when it gets crucified at the top of the spine, where the pneumogastric nerve is crossed, this does not mean death. This means crucifixion means to multiply 1,000-fold. And you see, not only is physical regeneration a result of this, but also spiritual regeneration. And one is able to experience the higher mind and clairvoyance. You see, mediumship occurs down in the solar plexus. There are 4 brains in the human body. The cerebrum, what is otherwise known as the God brain, the cerebellum, which is the man brain, the medulla oblongata, which is responsible for the involuntary actions in the body, such as breathing and blood circulation. And the 4th brain is the solar plexus, which is more related to the animal instinctive brain, which receives images from the ether, from the air, just like the animals do. We have the claustrum, we have the cerebrum, the covering angels, the cherubim, which cover over, because the cerebrum covers over the cerebellum and the midbrain and the optic thalamus and the pineal gland and the pituitary gland, otherwise known as Joseph.
Also looks very similar to the brain during different sections.
And Mary. You see, these 2 are the ones that are responsible for sending the oil down the spinal cord. And they are the ones that await the return of their son, who is born in Bethlehem, the solar plexus, once a month. You see, living riotously, overeating, consuming too much alcohol, these are poisons to the oil. These dry up the oil. And once the oil is dried up, the human organism dies.
Yep.
It cannot live.
Drying up the oil, like things like like watching pornography and wasting your seed that way, especially men. And even with the like, I just wanted to bring it back to menstruation. I know that that's not a topic that people like to talk about, especially since it's mostly men that have been watching my channel. But even with women, like they can often skip their period if through the month they're not being healthy in there with their lifestyles, right? Whether it be like antibiotics or medications that they're taking or drinking, or being underweight or overweight, or eating like really shitty foods with a lot of chemicals and pesticides and chemicals within it, and or even like birth control pills can like really alter like your hormone levels, your balances, like your mood regulation, and your body's natural ability to have a period, right? Especially like a healthy one too, because even with that, right? There's healthy periods and there's not healthy periods. That could hold a viable fetus and not, and stuff like that. So like you really have to pay attention to that as well. And if you're skipping your period, see why that's happening and try to again like adjust your lifestyle. It's the same thing, like once a month with the period, once a month with the seed. That if you like live a moderate and a good lifestyle, like these are all things that can assist you in accessing your higher levels of consciousness.
Without the oil that comes from the cerebrum, this beautiful fluid, the crystalline dew, which comes from the heaved up place, the heaven, and it comes down to the sacrum, the secretion, which is the secret, the sacred secret of the Christ within. The Holy Land is within, people. The Holy Land is the body. The Jordan River is the spinal cord. You see, Jesus gets baptized at the age of 30 and crucified at the age of 33. These correspond to the bones of the vertebrae. And as we progress with that oil by degree, we get our degrees. You see, we graduate with high honors and degrees. The degrees are referring to the spinal cord. And if we stay in the sacrum, sacred though it is, we do not ever climb Jacob's ladder to the place which Jacob called pineal. You see, in Genesis, Jacob laid his head upon a stone. That stone is the 5 fused bones of the sacrum, where the seed is born. The Bible's this wonderful book, and I've been endeavoring to share with humanity that it is a wonderful book. And it is a manual of astronomical, as above, so below phenomena. It's wonderful, wonderful, legendary, mythological, allegorical information. And in fact, the Apostle Paul in Galatians chapter 4, verse 25 says that the Bible stories are allegories
Nope, that's wrong.
for greater teachings. Now,
He's right about Galatians, but it's 4:24. Yes, I am a nerd.
within, what is the Christ within? Well, you see, the creation of the human body is one of the most wonderful creations in the universe. We have a wonderful brain, a heart, we have a generative system, a limbic system, nervous system, muscular, skeletal, tissue, lymphatic system. It's quite an amazing organism. It's just exquisite.
Nope. Okay, so that was interesting. I have one more. Hold up. The good thing about my other house, well, because there's a lot of trauma for a few years with people harassing me, but was that there was an area in the house that had like the greatest light, and I haven't found it yet here. This might be it. Okay, so I haven't watched this one yet either, so I'm watching it with you. It's called Raising the Chrism Christ Oil.
What is good, people? It's Revival of Wisdom. I hope you're all doing well. And this video is how to raise your holy oil or your Kundalini. Let's get straight into this. So this is a monthly cycle. Every month, when the moon is in your zodiac sign, this oil is released. Now, the moon is in control of monthly cycles. For women, it's the menstrual cycle, and as well, this holy oil cycle. The moon changes sign every 2 and 2.5 days and passes through the zodiac signs in 27 days. So the moon tells the day, the sun tells the time, the stars tell the month. This reality is a massive clock, if you like to say. It's a cycle. Okay. The moon controls the night, emotions, water, fluids, and the mind. Okay. So this oil is produced in the claustrum. It's produced in the claustrum, which is here, right? This is where you get Santa Claus from. Now, the claustrum is at the center of the brain, and it is next to the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. Once it starts in the claustrum, this is the holy present. This is the present that Santa gives to us, Santa Claus. And it goes to the pituitary gland and the pineal gland. And what's connected to the pituitary gland and the pineal gland is the Ida and the Pingala. The Pingala is the pineal gland's nerve, which is the honey, which is the positive charge, electric. And the pituitary is the Ida nerve, which is the magnetic charge. This is the milk. the land flowing with milk and honey. This is the brain, the heaven, okay? And it travels down the spine using these two nerves, these electromagnetic charge. And this is what the ancients symbolized with the two serpents wrapped around the spinal cord, the Ida and the Pingala. And this travels down to the sacrum or the solar plexus. Okay. So once it's here, okay, the spine is an elongation of the brain. So the spine is pretty much the brain. It's an extension of it. And it's kind of a microcosm of how we descended from heaven to physical reality, to physical matter, which is our consciousness has done. Our consciousness has descended from heaven into physical matter, and this is a microcosm of it. Okay, so once we're in the sacrum bone, this holy oil, like I've just explained, this holy oil starts in the Sancta Claustrum, goes down the chimney to the sacrum. This is the sacrum, the solar plexus, and drops the present off at the sacrum. Now, once we're at the sacrum, we need to raise our vibration to take this oil back up the spine. Okay, and the River Jordan symbolizes this in the Bible.
Okay, so I just went on a bit of a tangent. So I'm just going to stop the screen. And show you Gematria. I was just briefly looking up just to confirm. I didn't have to because I've already shared this stuff like on videos for years. But I looked at Acts 17:3 because like at first I looked at Galatians 4:24 and I did the search, and sure enough it talked about allegories, and I'll show you that just to show you that I'm not lying. But then I just put in Eleg or Eleg just to see if anything else came up, and sure enough there was only two things that came up. It was Acts 17:3 and Galatians 4:24. And then it says right here too, opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered and risen again from the dead, and that this Jesus whom I preach unto you is Christ. And so a little weird, right, in here? And doesn't it sound like Christmas? And so opening and alleging that Christ must needs have suffered. And so when I look at other interpretations and stuff like that, I'm seeing people are writing it differently. But this is the King James Version, and who was possibly written by Shakespeare, aka Sir Francis Bacon, aka like there's other theories as well that other people were also involved in the writing of the King James Bible, written in 1611. 6 + 1 is 7, 711, and like there's so many correlations with that. And who wrote this book, possibly being or Jesuit or whatever, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. But then also with the 7-Elevens in the US, who owns those convenience stores, and who implemented them there. And then September 11th, September, le numéro 7 is 7, translated from French to English, and September in a lot of different calendar systems, including my own that I use more, is the 7th month. And so when September 11th happened in 2001, this was also something that was possibly tied to certain groups. And I'll just say that they also involved someone like Netanyahu, who also lied to Congress in 2002. And I showed the video from C-SPAN, lying, saying that there was weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and there was not, which got us into a war. And I buried people that I loved and deployed to Afghanistan and served for over 15 years and still do. Incorporated for over 5 years now. I'm going in my 6th year. And anyway, this stuff needs to stop. So Galatians 4:24, I'm just going to show you that as well while we're at it. Which things are an allegory? For these are the two covenants, the one from Mount Sinai, which gendereth to bondage, which is Agar. This is all regarding sun worship, astrotheosophy, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, it's based on truth, but it's not facts. Just like so many other texts like that I've shared as well.
King Herod wants to kill Jesus in Nazareth, which is here. This is the River Jordan, is Nazareth. He goes to be born in Bethlehem and then goes back up to Nazareth to Joseph and Mary. Joseph and Mary, the pineal gland and the pituitary gland. The Bible is huge symbolism. It's all metaphors for this sacred process which goes on inside of your body.
I was asked a question about possible reasoning behind all this, or endgame. God, this friggin' light, I don't even know where to talk from. Not any better. I'll just leave this up and not frustrate people with the lighting thing. The end game, I don't know. I would love to talk to these people and see, like, especially like the heads of NASA I'm talking about, and ISS and RASA, like the heads of Johns Hopkins University, WEF, like the World Health Organization. Actually sit down and talk to these people and just be like, what are you thinking? Like do you even know the reality of the world? Like, do you even know what you're doing and the impacts from now and generations to come? Like, I don't know. Like, they're exploiting people. And there's a lot of money involved in it, right? There's trillions of dollars a year getting thrown at these stations and these people that are lying to us, including astronauts and stuff like that, who I call actronauts or astro not knots. And yeah, there's a lot of people with ego and entitlement and just like lack of care and concern for humans, right? And it's not even just rich and smart people that do this, right? Like I've worked with. I've worked in nursing homes my entire life because my grandmother ran and co-ran and operated one for decades. And so, like, from birth onwards until I joined the army, I was there often, and a lot of life lessons that, like, working in a nursing home with people. And I don't know where I was going with this tangent. But yeah, like even within in any place, right? Like, even like I've done volunteer work and charity work for years as well, including being a facilitator at Discovery University here in Ottawa for years. And then because of like me also calling out the pandemic shit at the mission and stuff like that, like they didn't like that, right? Because they were trying to push vaccines, forced inoculations on literally everyone just to get food and having to wear masks and all this stuff. And I'm just like, guys, like, are you like, oh my God. And I'm trying to give them all the freaking science and stuff, like, and they didn't want to listen to it, so that's a little frustrating. But yeah, so there's shitty people like all over the place, and they just they're just more concerned about themselves or in their own victim mentality, and they're not doing the research, they're not reading, they're believing the mainstream media, they're being lazy, and they want to have a staged and fake planned alien invasion, right? So like that's the whole thing with like the solar flares that they're pretending are going to happen, which is just like EMPs, like, and lasers and stuff like that they're using to disrupt our services and cause these blackouts and these electrical surges and stuff like that too. And electrical surges are also caused by morons, okay, that are over exhausting the grids that we have that have not been updated or upgraded or anything in literal generations, and don't understand that the same models of communities can't be applicable in all areas of the fucking world because there's different geopolitical environments, right? And have a heavy emphasis on the geo, right? Like Canada had significantly different weather than Florida, right? And that's even on the same continent, okay, like different than so many different areas as well. And then you go further north in Canada or Alaska, significantly different than fucking Mexico, right? Like, people, come on. And so, oh my God, even with the harnessing of the of energy, even within the atmosphere, people don't know what they're talking about, honestly. And so the end game is to dupe us with like some kind of a fake planned alien invasion. They've come out even in the last couple of years with these space forces and all this other shit, wasting more money that we're going to be throwing at, increasing more taxes. Like, it's like, I don't know. And so it'd be nice if just like people that actually knew the reality of the world were actually in government, and finally, like, realizing that the corporations that they're working with and like these photo ops they're doing with these like, oh, cool astronauts and oh, these NASA, like, oh, I'm so like, wow, these people are amazing. Oh, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Oh, let me just like, oh my God, I will suck your whatever, like brown nosers. Like, the guy's lying to you and he's loving it, right? Like people, oh my God, it is what it is.
You are the Temple of Solomon. You are the Holy Land. The Holy Land is your brain. Once this oil is at the sacrum, you need to raise your vibration in order to take it back up. Once this oil has gone back up to the pineal gland, it activates the crystals which are wrapped around your pineal gland. Your pineal gland is this tiny little beam here. This is the claustrum. This is the pineal gland, and it's wrapped in crystals. And when this oil travels back up the spine by raising your vibration, back to the upper room where Jesus met the 12 disciples, or the 12 cranial nerves in the brain, and it activates and it turns on this pineal gland. And once it's turned on, it illuminates all the cells and the nerves in your brain and turns them all on and activates the higher God man, the God consciousness, Christ consciousness. And it regenerates the whole body. This is the secret to regeneration. It regenerates all the cells in the body. And this is how the ancients lived for thousands and thousands of years, as talked about in ancient texts. They lived for hundreds and thousands of years because they knew this secret. And this fluid, this brain fluid, the secretion, or the Christos in Greek, which means gold, because this is the alchemical process from turning the lead to gold. Your body is the alchemical furnace. Now, the ancients knew about this center of the brain because they symbol it. This is the Eye of Ra, and it's the brain, and this is what's wrapped around our consciousness. Our consciousness isn't wrapped around the brain. The brain is built around the consciousness.
Oh yeah,
We are the
cranial
consciousness.
nerves. And that's something too that I've shared that I thought was so fascinating when I would like the 12 cranial nerves, guys, 12 constellations, 12 zodiac signs, and in every culture has like a different representation of 12 of something, right? Where the sun is passing through these signs, like in the sky, and then with this connection with the brain as well. Like I'm like what as above, so below, and as within, so without. And I couldn't even like explain this. Even it's a reality, right? Like perception literally is reality, and we're perceiving and experiencing this multidimensional earth plane through our mind. This central nervous system connection that's allowing us to connect like our higher level of consciousness, whatever it may be, to play this game, right? Or to enter this reality, and inhabit this host, this avatar, this meat suit that we're utilizing, that it's utilizing, that I'm utilizing to experience this realm or cosmos or universe.
You don't have a soul, you are the soul. Okay.
Yeah. And we are, I will reiterate, we are light in motion, all of us at different densities or whatever you want to call it, and light in motion and electrical magnetic beings of light.
Now, the head, heaven, hell, heel at the bottom of your foot, that's hell. Head is heaven and hell. Simple. Now, the pineal gland produces DMT, which is dimethyltryptamine, which is known as the spirit molecule. So, let's move on. Now, when this oil travels up, back, the spine, the chimney, it crucifies at the top, which is called the vagus nerve. So when it reaches here, the optic thalamus, it crosses and crucifies once it's raised back up. And this is why Jesus dies at 33. He was crucified at 33. Because you have 33 vertebrae on the back of the spine. And then it's crucified by the cross of the vagus nerve. When this oil crosses the vagus nerve, this is the crucifixion at 33. And it symbolizes the death of the physical consciousness. You then become spirit. You then become God consciousness, activating the Kundalini, regenerating the body and the mind. Okay. The Garden of Eden. You are the Garden of Eden. The land of milk and honey is upstairs. The pituitary, which is the milk, the pineal gland, which is the honey, which is DMT. It even says this in the Bible. As he brought us into the place, and he has given us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey, which is also symbolized as the sun and the moon. The Bible also says, the light of the body is the eye, not the eyes, the eye. If therefore thine eye be single, thy whole body shall be full of light. This is the activation of the pineal gland by raising this oil back up to the pineal gland. to the center of the brain. Neither shall they say, see that here, or see there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. So he's saying, don't look out there. Nothing is out there. It's all inside of you. Everything's inside of you. You're the universe. Now, how to raise this oil back up to the pineal gland? Every month, like I said, the moon controls the cycle. The moon controls monthly cycles. When the moon is going into your zodiac sign every month, this oil goes down the spine, and you must raise your frequency to get it back up. You must retain your seed. This is the most important. Your fluid, your secret, your holy fluid, your life force. You can't let that go. That life force is the reason you're alive. This holy oil is the reason you're alive, because it feeds all of the systems in your body. It feeds all the systems in your body. You have to retain your seed, alkaline diet, positive thinking, and meditation.
Oh, also something that I have not heard anyone else made the connection to, correct me if I'm wrong, but even with the path of Venus, it actually forms the Sephiroth tree of life. And when you map it out too, like every 8 years, it does form a pentagram, right? Or whatever you want to call it, like Star of David and things like that as well. And so even with the Sephiroth, with the Kabbalah, where you have actually maybe I'll stop it and show you what I'm talking about. If you connect the dots using like a compass, like a geometric compass, not one used for navigation, you can actually like the tree of life is formed as well. And also interesting note that I've talked about in previous videos, and that people like Stellium 7 talks about in great depth and detail, and I highly recommend you take a look at his work. Stellium being Stellium and then 7. Also talks about oil being actually no, I shared that with him. He already knew it. That's like what, and again, I talked to him as well, like on social media, and he responds back, right? And because I literally want to ask people that are experts, and so even with tree roots, this is where possibly we get our oil from. So if you look here, what is the pentagram of Venus retrograde? And then does Venus drive the pentagram? Yes, the planet Venus does indeed trace a pentacle-shaped path in the sky as seen from Earth every 8 years. This pattern is known as the pentagram of Venus. And it's in retrograde. And so like if you look at this, the pentagram of Venus, see what they share. There you go. And if you look into sacred geometry as well and map out circles, like there's so many different, like the hexagram, the pentagram, the like they're like all these shapes are created. In even the Fibonacci spiral is mentioned, and pi and phi. Anyway, very interesting stuff.
Okay. When you retain your seed, you will live longer. The moment you release it, you're killing yourself. You're killing a piece of yourself every time you release your seed. Every single time. You're killing a part of yourself. Okay. Well, this could be why this could be the illumination, the single eye on the Illuminati's symbol, the Freemasonic symbol, the illuminated eye. The triangle, which could symbolize the body, mind, and spirit, but the eye illuminated. Now, in the Bible, it talks about the two trees, the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. The tree of knowledge is the tree of good and evil, which is the most important system in your body, which is the nervous system. The nervous system, the most important. The tree of good and evil. And
so yeah, even with this, like it would be like hyperboloids stacked up on each other, which would be like a better representation of Earth. But like even if you look at the toroidal field hyperboloids that are represented here, if this looks like a hourglass, right? Like that measures time, and like Saturn is possibly like its electromagnetic field is possibly like the outermost one. Other people believe it's Uranus, or Uranus as we like to call it as well. I don't know. there's not I don't have as much detail on that as I do with the Saturn Cronus one, and then even like with magnetic fields, like the spirals and stuff like that as well. The inverted, this is also something that is represented
The tree of life.
by Saturn, and Kronos is also represented by Saturn. And so I don't know. There's just like a lot more connections with Saturn than Uranus.
Which is the cardiovascular system. Now, this oil, when it's released every month, feeds these two systems, and these two systems feed everything. Now, it's important you understand that. Okay? The ancients knew all of this knowledge. The Bible's telling you this knowledge, but it's in a metaphorical way. You have to understand the context behind it so you can read it properly. Now, eating of the tree of life, which is what it talks about in the Bible, eating from the tree of life.
Yeah, so Solomon, Sol, sun, mon, moon.
Is actually symbolizing a bad diet, ejaculation, because you're eating from these two systems. You're killing yourself with a bad diet. You're killing yourself with an ejaculation. Okay? So, that's important to understand. Now, this is Jacob's ladder in the Freemasons. Jacob's ladder, which is the spinal cord, it's the stairway to heavens. And this is Jack and the Beanstalk when he goes up the beanstalk and finds the golden egg in the grey clouds. The grey clouds symbolize the grey matter in your brain. Now, the Garden of Eden talks about the 4 different rivers in Garden of Eden. As we see here, the North Pole map, the ancient North Pole map, because the center of the earth is the center of the torus field. Everything's the torus field. Atoms are torus fields. Everything's torus fields.
That's included.
You are the universe. Everything is with you. The North Pole is your spinal cord. This is why they say Santa Claustrum comes from the North Pole. This is the North Pole. And the Santa Claustrum is the center of your brain. Now, there's 4 rivers which come from the Garden of Eden. There's the blood, the Christ oil, which is the oil we're talking about, urine, and saliva. These are the 4 sacred oil, 4 sacred fluids in your body. And these are constantly abused in today's society. Also, these secret societies are targeting these fluids.
Yeah,
Okay?
fear
This
also.
is why
drains
porn is
fluid.
free. They sexualize society through Disney. Go and look at some of the Disney movies. There's so many subliminal messages which sexualize these children because they want you sexualized. So you release your seed, which is one of the holy fluids in your body, especially your semen, your sexual energy. So important you retain this. So important because it's your life force. It keeps you alive. Okay.
More reasons
Now-
to porn, guys.
Let's recap on this. If you want to raise your oil every month, you can't just retain your seed for the month. You have to retain your seed forever.
So like he's talking like I don't know if you mentioned porn, but I will as well. So like not only are you supporting and enabling by watching it, and again it's not your friggin', I mean you're supporting human trafficking of all ages. So and also like it's not free. Like there are people that are selling your tracking, your cookies, and that's the information they're looking for, right? And what you're consuming, what you're like, all of that stuff, because like that's how they get us stuck in these trances on social friggin' media for like 10 hours a friggin' day, or playing video games, which also like ruins your seed. But with porn, like again, like such a small percentage of the female population is in porn. Like such a small percentage of it, and people look at, or gravitate towards a certain niche or genre, whatever that is on you. That it is what it is. But then they start treating people in public, other women, that they interact with, right? Like that they're not watching on a friggin' phone or a laptop, right? That they interact with women like as if they're these porn stars that are part of these scenarios that they're watching. You know what I mean, in real life, and it's like that's not. Like that's not going to work with real women, right? Like real women, I'm saying like not like from a phone, like we don't want to be treated like that. We like at all, like, and I don't think anyone does, right? And that's not reality. And even like with sex, right? Like why are you trying to like simulate that? Like in a relationship with what, like the weird, especially the weird stuff that's like that people are saying that they're watching now. And that even like the heads of these porn companies are saying that they're intentionally putting in videos that are more swayed towards other demographics, just to get even like straight people to look at more homosexual content, even if, you know, like, they're just adding it in, even if that's not specifically what they're looking for. They're getting it in their search engine or whatever, and it's intentional, and it's like, and that's also making men more homosexual, more feminine. And then also like really, you know, making normalizing stuff that shouldn't be normalized, right? Like it's and I can go on so many tangents, but just check yourself with what you watch with your freaking porn, and like maybe not treat women like that, right? And talk to women like that in public, like, you know, like especially the wife material type, like they're gonna run away. And I can tell, like when I can tell by looking at a man or a woman, but like again, it's more men that are consuming this material. I can honestly tell when a man overconsumes porn, and like because like the skin is more gaunt, like it's not a vibrant, healthy look to the skin, like more dry. It is. I'm telling you, you know, and even with the chin, like the lower sloped jaw, like you can tell that these like looking down for extended periods of time. There's other tells, like how people develop, just how much porn they watch. Like I'm telling you, it's gotten to be pretty extreme. Anyway, so many tangents. It's just because it's not helping anyone.
Don't just do it for a couple of days. Have to do it. It's a lifestyle. You want to become God consciousness, you got to do what it takes. It's hard in this society because this society is made around, it's designed to kill you pretty much. It's designed to keep you in these lower states of consciousness with all the bad food, the chemicals in the food, the chemicals in the water, sexualized TV programs, sexualized adverts, sexualized TikTok and apps, videos, subliminally stimulating you because that is your weakness, sex. It's a weakness. Now, you have to retain your seed, meditation, and an alkaline diet. Why alkaline? Because acidic is low vibrational. This is the color spectrum. And what's the highest vibrational color? Violet. It's the lowest, red. You have to have an alkaline body in order to raise this oil. When you drink, when you have a bad diet, when you drink alcohol, when you smoke, this destroys the oil. It destroys the oil in your sacrum, and it can't be raised again, can't be raised up. This is why it's so important. Without that oil, you don't live. That oil makes you live. It feeds everything in your body. It's crazy how we're not taught this. It's insane. But that is how you raise the oil, people. I hope you all gain some knowledge out of this video. And I hope this assists you on your journey, your spiritual journey.
So blind. Okay. Okay, well, I hope that was interesting. Even for me, like I try to drink alkaline water or distilled water, and if I'm sick, I try to get like even like natural remedies like neem tea, dandelion root, shilajit, iodine for sure, and magnesium supplementation, NMN, quercetin. Like there's so many different things that you can take. EDTA, which is a chelation, which also assists with detoxing heavy metals, and reducing sugar too, like when you're inflamed, because sugar molecules are actually like irritants. There's actually spikes on the molecules, and it actually is inflammatory. And so you'll notice if you eat more sugar, you'll find that you're more sore. Like it's really weird how that stuff works. And there's so many other things I could talk about, but I will leave it at that. On that note, and I hope that everyone has a wonderful day.